Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. We are in the Omar, which is the time between the Passover, the first fruits, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it's 49 days or 7 weeks in a day, which is 50 days, to the Feast or Festival of Weeks. So one is the beginning of the barley harvest. And when we get to the Festival of Weeks, it's also Harvest Festival where they're changing over from the barley harvest to the wheat harvest. The book of Ruth is read during the Festival of Weeks, and it celebrates the ancestry of King David. And if you're Christian, King David was the forefather of Jesus Christ on both sides of the family. His human stepfather, Joseph, and his mother. So we start in chapter 3. And the book of Ruth is named after Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? So Naomi is concerned about Ruth. Now Naomi was the widow of Elimelech, and Ruth was the widow of Naomi and Elimelech's son. And so we go back to verse 9 in chapter 1, verse 1. The Lord grant ye that ye may rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. So what had happened is they had gone to Moab. Elimelech and Naomi and their 2 sons, because there was a famine in the land. They got to Moab, and when they got to Moab, there was a famine there. But before the famine, their 2 sons had married 2 Moabite women, one of which was Ruth. And then the husband died, Elimelech died, and the 2 sons died. So in verse 1, what Naomi is telling her daughter-in-laws, now her daughters, that she's releasing them. They can stay in Moab, go back to their families, remarry, and live happy lives. They hadn't had any children with her sons, so they were perfectly free to do that. But Ruth chose to go with Naomi back to Bethlehem because Naomi had nothing left there. So she decided to go back home, and she released her daughters to stay with their original families and remarry and live out full lives where they could have husbands and rest. But Ruth said, no, your God is my God. Your people are my people, and went with her. So I'm going to start back in chapter 3, verse 2. And now it is not Boaz, our kindred, with whom those maidens thou wast. Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. So he is at the threshing floor. Now, what is threshing? If you take wheat or barley or any grain, you thrash it, the kernels come off. And then the kernels are ground up. And you can also, there's a thing where you can throw them in the air, and the light part, which is the part you want to eat, the flour, will separate out, and the hard kernels will fall right where they are. Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee, and put on thy remnant upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. So she was widowed. Ruth was. Naomi was too. And it shall be that when he lieth down, thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou go in and uncover his feet, and lay down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. What? So Naomi's telling Ruth to lay next to him after she uncovers his feet. And she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to that her mother-in-law bade her, or asked her. And then Boaz had eaten and drank, and his heart was merry, and he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. It came to pass at midnight, the man was afraid, and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. Surprise, surprise, Boaz. And he said, who art thou? It was dark. And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaiden. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaiden, for thou art a near kinsman. So Boaz was actually a cousin to her late husband. And it was tradition back then, if a woman was widowed, a lot of times the man's brother would marry her or someone in the family. And he said, blessed be thou the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast shown my daughter. Just like you say to somebody younger, my son. Like a man would say, my son, why don't you? Even if they weren't related. He's not insinuating that Ruth is anyway his daughter. Thou shalt show more kindness in the latter end than the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether rich or poor. So once she was done mourning, Boaz is basically saying, you're beautiful, and you could have any of these young men that are, available. He's giving her a wonderful compliment here. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou request, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. So when they returned to Bethlehem, Ruth was faithful to Naomi. She was not a loose woman. She stayed with her mother-in-law and was virtuous. And now it is true that I am a near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the kinsman unto thee, then I will do the part of the kinsman to thee. As the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning. So why would he have her stay there? I guess because of her reputation. If she's caught walking out all hours of the night, people might assume things. And it may not be safe. Because not every man in the culture evidently was noble as Boaz was being to her. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. So it was still dark, and people couldn't tell who was walking around. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came unto the floor. And he said, bring the veil that thou hast put upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And she came unto her mother-in-law and said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me. For he said unto me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law, or empty-handed. And then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he has finished the thing this day. So she knew that Boaz would waste no time to find out if the next nearest kinsman would want to take Ruth's hand. And it ends up that the other gentleman, his prejudice against the Moabites works in their favor. So I'll finish reading this, and next week we'll still be in the Omar. We'll still not be to the Festival of Weeks. And we'll be ahead of the game because usually Ruth is read during the Festival of Weeks. So this will be available for people to listen to, in its entirety. I'll put all 4 chapters in a post or in a short video explaining what is going on, so everybody can watch the playlist of all of Ruth during the Festival of Weeks. You all have a wonderful and blessed day.